SLT එක ස්පීඩ් අප් වෙන්න. සුපර් ඩීල්ස් අත්විඳින්න. SLT ස්පීඩ් අප් සුපර් ඩීල්ස් සැප්තැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි.
Tonight, Sri Lankan or not, civil society activists file petition against Gotabaya Rajapaksa challenging his citizenship. Gotabaya meanwhile insists that the documents are legal. Eliminating modern terrorism. Sajid Premadasa says strengthening national security and reconciliation aids in elimination of modern terrorism. More attention. Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe believes Sri Lanka needs to pay more attention to promote renewable energy sources.
I can assure you, climate resilience is coming to the forefront. It is essential for a country like Sri Lanka.
Stern action. Calls for government action on cinnamon adulteration.
We need the government and the relevant agencies to take quick remedial measures protecting our market share in the world, especially in cinnamon.
All these stories and much more coming our way on First at 9 this Monday, the 30th of September 2019.
Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ marks අඩු වෙලා fairness වැඩි වෙලා.
Marks අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ fairness standard එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti-marks cream.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9, AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. On your top story tonight, a petition was filed in the Court of Appeal today by civil society activists Gamini Viyangoda and Professor Chandragupta Tenuvara against recognising former Defence Secretary and SLPP presidential candidate as a citizen of Sri Lanka. It was taken up before President of the Appeals Court, Justice Yasantha Kodagoda and Justice Arjuna Abesekara.
The petitioners Gamini Viyangoda and Professor Chandragupta Tenuvara alleged that Gotabaya Rajapaksa obtained his Sri Lankan passport and national identity card without having produced legitimate citizenship documents. They further claimed that when Mahinda Rajapaksa took office as president on the 18th of November in 2005, he had lost his legal powers to act as Prime Minister owing to the cabinet dissolution. The petitioners pointed out that Gotabaya Rajapaksa had obtained his dual citizenship status during the period from 18th to 24th of November 2005, a time when a secretary to the relevant ministry had not been appointed as yet. They argued that Gotabaya Rajapaksa's document proving his dual citizenship status was one that was provided by an authority without the necessary legal powers to do so, therefore it must be nullified. The petitioners requested the appeals court to deliver an order suspending the issuance of a passport and a national ID card to Gotabaya Rajapaksa. They also sought an interim order suspending Rajapaksa's passport and NIC pending the court's verdict. Appearing on behalf of Rajapaksa President's Counsel, Romesh De Silva handed over several documents relating to his client's citizenship certificate, NIC and copies of the testimonies given by Rajapaksa to the police previously. After considering these documents, the Court of Appeal decided to take up the petition before a three-member judge bench on the 2nd of October.
කිසකෙස් යනවාද විසඳුම දින 6න් පුරාණයේ පටන් භාවිතා කරන ඉපැරණි ශාකසාර වට්ටු රූපයට අනුව නිපදවන ගානීෂා hair growth oil සියලුම ෆාමසි සහ වෙළඳ සැල් වලින්.
The presidential contender of the Sri Lanka Pollution former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa responded to the accusations of his allegedly faking his citizenship renunciation, insisting that the documents of relinquishment were prepared legally. The former Defence Secretary made these remarks at an event held in Colombo today.
A special convention of the Desha Vimukti Janata Paksha was held at the new town hall in Colombo this morning under the patronage of the opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa. A set of proposals prepared by the Desha Vimukti Janata Paksha were presented to Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
In 2005, when the then President Mahinda Rajapaksa invited me to become the Defence Secretary, I applied for my dual citizenship. Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was also the subject minister back then, handed me the certificate of dual citizenship. It is out of my understanding how this dual citizenship, which wasn't a disqualification to defeat terrorism, has become a fake document after 15 years. If I have all the qualifications and if my brother is the president himself, why would I obtain a fake document? In April this year, however, I renounced my US citizenship and later I applied to obtain a Sri Lankan passport and identity card, which were provided to me legally. The point of note is that they were given to me by this government. At a time when I have come forward as a candidate, they are using such strategies to try and stop me in fear of facing the people in a democratic process. They should all remember that we declared our candidate after consulting attorneys and intellectuals who checked his eligibility to contest the election. They have now rolled up their sleeves to take us to courts. They are trying to take us to courts out of fear of losing. Why do they fear us? If they have worked for the people, they can contest and should respect the public mandate. But they cannot do that since they are aware of their pending defeat.
United National Front presidential candidate Minister Sajid Premadasa insists that modern terrorism can be eliminated with the strengthening of national security and reconciliation. Addressing a special meeting at the UNP headquarters today, Minister Premadasa also called on his party to work towards establishing the most efficient government in Sri Lanka.
A special meeting was held for all party organisers at the UNP headquarters in Colombo today. UPFA parliamentarian Vijit Vijay Munisoiza was also seen attending the meeting.
Some of our members gathered here today have an extensive knowledge of elections. All we need to do now is to ensure a win for our presidential candidate. All UNPers have discussed and agreed on everything between ourselves, and we must now go out and convince other people about this. We will always work towards strengthening national security. Reconciliation between communities and religions will be ensured when national and political security is ensured. We will then be able to eliminate all forces who are trying to revive modern terrorism. I propose that we establish the most productive and efficient government in our democratic history.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the United National Front, Minister Sajid Premadasa's new election campaign office was opened at the Vauxhall Street in Colombo today under the patronage of leader of the UNP, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Presidential candidate of the JVP-led National People's Power Movement, Anura Kumar Dissanayaka, pledged to start off his presidency by cleaning out corrupted law enforcement institutions that turn a blind eye to wrongdoers. He made this pledge at an event held in Badulla yesterday.
The JVP-led National People's Power Movement organised a public gathering at the Badulla Auditorium yesterday.
We will guarantee that all these fraudsters will be brought to book. Have no doubt about it. Every citizen of this country is duty-bound to explain how their assets were earned. How then are these fraudsters still walking free? They get away using legal loopholes. All institutions established to take action against these fraudsters, beginning with law enforcement, investigative agencies, prosecution and the judiciary, have been compromised. Therefore, it isn't easy to prosecute these people while these four arms of the law remain the way they are. So we will start things off by cleaning up these same institutions.
The Election Commission today decided to extend the deadline to submit applications for postal votes in the upcoming presidential election until the 4th of October. The previous deadline for submitting applications was at midnight today. The Commission stated that eligible postal voters should submit their applications to the returning officer of their respective districts before the due closing date. On to other local news, the disabled soldiers who had been engaged in a protest in front of the Fort railway station for 20 days called off their protest today after pledges that their issues will be resolved. Earlier today, presidential candidate of the UNF, Minister Sajid Premadasa, visited the protesting soldiers and promised them his fullest support and promised to revert with a solution to their issues. Later in the afternoon, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa visited the soldiers and stated that all of the issues faced by them will be resolved under a Gotabaya Rajapaksa government. At the request of the opposition leader, the protesting soldiers called off off the agitation, and Rajapaksa proceeded to offer a glass of clean coconut water to a soldier who had been engaged in fast unto death, marking the end of a protest. And we will now go into a short commercial break, but make sure you stay tuned for more news right after that. Welcome back to the news. Former Deputy Speaker of the United Kingdom's House of Commons, Lord Naseby, advised Sri Lanka to seek to reduce UNHRC interference in its internal matters as much as possible, and stated that the country is capable enough to deal with matters on its own terms. Speaking to Individu Amuat on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, during his visit to Sri Lanka, Lord Naseby added that the United Kingdom has a part to play in bringing together the Sri Lankan diaspora to engage with the country in a more constructive manner than simply complaining.
Sri Lanka has slowly navigated away from a non-aligned policy towards the West when the increasing importance of the West is on the decline. How can we look at our foreign policy direction?
You go back to the original policy you had, which was a non-aligned one. I mean, I see you've got investment here from the USA, you've got investment from the UK. It's quite clear at this point in time China has decided that you're a key player in terms of your geographical location, and you've got your next door neighbour, India, who I've always very carefully looked at Sri Lanka, and you have to have that sophisticated foreign service that manages to balance all these needs. But the key still remains to get rid of the UNHCR, frankly, and it's an interference. It's all very well somebody saying from the UN that, you know, you've got to achieve this, that and the other, reconciliation. Yes, of course you have. But you could do it much better your own. You've got the institutions there to make it happen.
When you say get rid of the UNHRC and the kind of interference in internal matters of Sri Lanka, now this is not just the UNHRC, we also have the UK and the USA, although it is not a member now, and certain other European nations also engaged in pushing resolution after resolution for Sri Lanka.
The world needs to understand that Sri Lanka's been through a long period of difficulty, that has made huge progress. It needs, yes, some aid to help, and that means at our end we have to get a grip of the diaspora. The diaspora should be investing in Sri Lanka instead of complaining about Sri Lanka, and that's a challenge for our nation to try and ensure the Sri Lankan diaspora do get together, do understand that it's their home country, and Sri Lanka needs them to take an interest in what is happening on the ground here and put some money and resources and efforts into it.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe insists that Sri Lanka must pay closer attention to renewable energy sources at a time when climate resilience remains one of the main priorities in the country's future. Addressing the inaugural ceremony of the World Renewable Energy Congress 2019 today, the Premier went on to say that it is time for Sri Lanka to start promoting renewable energy sources in its energy policies.
The World Renewable Energy Congress 2019 kicked off today in Colombo under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Themed Green Colombo 19, the two-day Congress is a platform for experts and representatives from various sectors to discuss renewable energy and climate resilience. It enables policymakers, researchers, manufacturers and economists to present their views in plenary and technical sessions with the purpose of strengthening focus on the use of renewable energy.
About 4 years ago, the famous professor from Stanford, and he said the world is going chaotically between socialist, communist, capitalist, and between greed of individual and greed of various company to ruin this world. He said the answer come from the young children, and sure enough, that did happen. Now we have everywhere in the world young children telling you, you lived your life, give me the chance as a child to live. Don't destroy the world. We have more than 3,500 self-ignited fires. More than 70 to 80 floods happening every day around the world. Even Bill Gates said the climate change and the global warming, it's costing the earth more than $3 trillion a year. In Saudi Arabia, which is the country which is considered the second largest country in the world who produce oil. Now we have His Excellency Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He declared in Saudi Arabia the phase of oil and gas, what we use for electricity, is gone. Now the phase of renewable energy. Renewable energy is here to stay.
One of the first projects we've started has been the megapolis. Look at Sri Lanka at the center of the Indian Ocean. But that had to be a green city. We are also paying attention not only to the cities but to the other aspects. We look at renewable energy in power supply. We have to consider it within our transport system, domestic electricity supply. All these require a wide plan. And I can assure you, in the future, climate resilience is coming to the forefront. It is essential for a country like Sri Lanka. We are a country which for over thousands of years depended on water, on hydraulic systems for our existence and for our economy. And we had the systems to safeguard the water sources. It is not so today. Unfortunately, climate changes as well as the increase in demand for power means need to increase the renewable energy sources for Sri Lanka. How are we going to promote it? This has been a neglected aspect of Sri Lanka's energy policy.
In the backdrop of the recent launch of Sri Lanka's latest national brand, Ceylon Spice, the government pledged stern action against anyone harming the image of Ceylon spices. However, allegations of cassia adulteration, unhealthy competition and low-quality production in the cinnamon trade have emerged. Founder Chairman of the Spice Council of Sri Lanka, Sarada De Silva, revealed this at the Council's 15th Annual General Meeting and called for quick action to prevent any lasting damage to Sri Lanka's long-held reputation of being a world-class spice producer.
Currently, Sri Lanka is the largest exporter and fourth largest producer of true cinnamon in the world. According to the Cinnamon Market Growth Trends and Forecast 2019-2024 report, the demand for Ceylon cinnamon is increasing in countries such as Mexico, the United States, Peru, Bolivia, Chile and Guatemala. According to founder chairman of the Spice Council, Sarada De Silva, this position remains volatile as allegations of cassia adulteration remains a serious issue that could bring lasting harm to the Ceylon Spice brand and compromise the council's target of $1 billion in exports.
Presently, the spice sector is facing many challenges. One is the drop in the international prices of pepper due to high volume production by Vietnam. But in the case of cinnamon, it's a local issue, unhealthy competition and low quality products being offered at low market rates. And also the talks of adulteration with the cassia in cinnamon. So we need the government and the relevant agencies to take quick remedial measures to improve the production and productivity and increasing and protecting our market share in the world, especially in cinnamon.
On international business news, China today warned of instability in international markets as a result of any decoupling of China and the United States after sources said the Trump administration was considering delisting Chinese companies from US stock exchanges. 3 sources briefed on the matter said on Friday that US President Donald Trump's administration is considering the move in what would be a radical escalation of US-China trade tensions. It would be part of a broader effort to limit US investment in Chinese companies and is motivated by the Trump administration's growing security concerns about the company's activities. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said it had noted the reports on delisting and their response from the US Treasury, which said there were no plans to block Chinese listings at this time. Stocks in mainland China fell to their lowest in almost a month today on the news that the United States may curb Chinese companies' access to US capital markets. The United States and China have been locked in an escalating trade war for over a year. They have levied punitive duties on hundreds of billions of dollars of each other's goods, roiling financial markets and threatening global growth. Now in Sri Lankan shares ended weaker today, falling for the second straight session. The Osha price index ended 0.58% down at 5,738.24. The Bourse fell 0.38% last week. So far this year, the index has dropped 5.2%. Meanwhile, equity market turnover was 770.1 million rupees, more than this year's daily average of about 661.0 million rupees. Last year's daily average was 834 million rupees. Foreign investors were net buyers of 232.6 million rupees worth of shares today, but they have been net sellers of 2.6 billion rupees of equities so far this year. Meanwhile, in the currency market, the rupee ended weaker on increased dollar demand from banks. The rupee closed at 182 rupees and 10 cents to the dollar, weaker than Friday's close of 181 rupees and 85 cents to 182 rupees. The rupee fell 0.41% last week. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Well, we have news from around the world up next, so stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. Heavy rains killed at least 113 people in India's Uttar Pradesh and Bihar states over the past 3 days, officials said today, as flood waters swarmed a major city and inundated hospital wards. India's monsoon season usually begins petering out by early September, but heavy rains have continued across parts of the country this year, triggering the floods. And officials said that at least 93 people died in the country's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, since Friday after its eastern areas were lashed by intense monsoon downpours. In neighbouring Bihar, an impoverished agrarian region that has already suffered flooding earlier this year, the death toll from the latest rain reached 20 on Monday, a state government official said. Yemens Iran-aligned Houthi group broadcast footage yesterday that it showed a major attack near the border with Saudi Arabia's southern region of Najran, adding that its forces had captured troops and vehicles. Saudi Arabia, which leads a coalition that has been battling the Houthis, has not responded to the Houthi announcement that they had carried out the attack. Houthi military released images broadcast on TV of armoured vehicles hit by blasts and what the Houthis said were surrendering fighters. The military spokesperson Yahya Saria said the offensive 72 hours earlier had inflicted heavy casualties and led to the capture of thousands of enemy troops, including Saudi army officers and soldiers, and hundreds of armoured vehicles. The organization did not give a day for when the footage was filmed. Now, hundreds of people braved the rain yesterday to pay their respects to late French President Jacques Chirac, lying in state in Paris. Chirac, a political chameleon who dominated French politics for decades and strived to make France's voice heard in Europe and beyond, died last week at the age of 86.
Jacques Chirac was president from 1995 to 2007. He shaped his style in the mold of post-war leader Charles de Gaulle, seeking to strengthen France's status as a player on the world stage, and was best remembered for his opposition to the war in Iraq. Some 30 heads of state and government are expected to attend a ceremony in Paris today in honor of Chirac, who will be buried alongside his daughter Laurence in the Montparnasse Cemetery.
Pakistan scored 305 for the loss of 7 wickets, batting first in the second one-day international played in Karachi today. In response, Sri Lanka currently 85 runs for the loss of 5 wickets. Scotland revived their Rugby World Cup campaign with 34-0 victory over Samoa and Kobe, Japan today, scoring 4 tries in a much improved performance to secure a bonus point that could prove crucial in a tight Pool A. Winger Sean Maitland and scrum half Greg Ledlaw scored converted tries, with Stuart Hogg landing a 40-metre drop goal in the first half, while 2 penalties tries after break secured the all-important extra point. Samoa winged Fido was the offender for both penalty tries, and he was shown a yellow card for the first, then given his marching orders after crashing into Maitland with his knees to stop the Scot getting over the line in the 74th minute. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce further staked her claim as one of the greatest female sprinters of all time by storming to victory in the women's 100 metres final at the World Championships in Doha. The Jamaican blew away a world-class field in a time of 10.71 seconds to claim her 4th World Championship title in the discipline and 8th world title overall, just 2 years after childbirth. And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.